Back. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy June 20th. Hanging out with D Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. We'll talk some Phils in a little bit, Gunner, but let's keep the Eagles momentum going. Just wrap things up with BG, with Brandon Graham. All right, little make it or break it. Now, look, there are obviously Eagles like Jalen Hurts who there's no make it or break it. They've made it. And Brandon Graham's made it. But there are others that we sit here, going into the season, not really sure about. Either they had down years last year or they've never really accomplished what you had hoped when they drafted them, or whatever the case may be. And there's a bunch of guys that fall into that category. I would say one that really jumps out first, right, is Quez Watkins.
Yep.
Showed you some flashes a couple of years ago with the speed that he has, some big plays here and there. But by his own admission, it was a really down year last year for him. And he was I'll give him credit. He was critical of himself and I got to be better. And this wasn't good enough, this and that. And that's good. That's good. But I think as much as the Eagles want him to do well this year, I think they probably would never say it publicly, but they're wondering too what he's all about. So if I threw Quez Watkins at you in terms of a make it or break it this year, do you think he makes it or he breaks it?
I think this particular year he makes it, but you look at this organization and you look at the volume of draft picks that they are armed with for 2024, and that includes a multitude of compensatory picks as well. I think this is a pivotal year for Quez with the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles decide not to keep him, I believe there's somebody going to pick him up just based on his speed alone. Right. I mean, if you think about it, Jalen Reagor is still in the league, Nelson Aguilar is still in the league, Quez Watkins will find a place to try to showcase himself and improve his credibility in the National Football League. But you look at how this team has short patience with a John Hightower, with a Jalen Reagor, how they moved on for them after several years. Quez Watkins has the perfect size, is 6'3", 193 pounds, blazing speed, and he's still buried as a afterthought as a receiver. Okay, he has the ability to be a frontline receiver. We know he's a home run hitter, but the other elements of his game have not allowed him to elevate his status. Over the last two seasons, he's had 76 catches for 1,001 yards. That's not bad for a number 3 receiver, but he has the capability of being so much more. Now, obviously, he's overshadowed by A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I get that. Mm-hmm. But there's still a definitive role. I thought there were too many times in games last year where he was a forgotten entity in the game plan, and you have to ask yourself, why is that? Mm-hmm. Is it because they didn't trust him in situations? Is it because Jalen decided to rely on other people more so, whether it's a back, the tight end, or one of his favorite wideouts, and just didn't look his way enough? Was his number not called nearly enough last season? I think this is a big year for Quez in terms of showing. Now, he's already spoken out about, bleep you people who don't believe in me. I'll prove you wrong. Never should have said that, first of all. Mm-hmm. When you're playing on a team that has 2 of the elite receivers in the National Football League, that has one of the top 3 to 4 tight ends in the game today, the last thing you need to do is publicly fire back at people who have doubts about you. The best way to answer your critics is to prove it on the field between the stripes. So now you put that on your back as well, and people are going to remind you of it, and people are going to bring up that quote time and time again when you don't show up in games. Plain and simple. I think this is a huge season for him.
I think so too. Like I think because they don't have a ton after Zaccheaus, after Olamide Zaccheaus, I think that he makes it. And he does bring an element that they don't. It's not to say Devontae Smith can't run. He certainly, right. But he's got sort of different kind of speed, does Quez. So I think he makes it. For me, the jury's very much out, Derek. I am not. I go in very skeptical of him this year. I'm not. Yep. I don't have confidence in him. He's going to have to prove it to me and everybody else before I buy into him. So I think make it in the sense that he's on the team, but it could very well be a break it year for him, like you said. This could be the last year of him with the Eagles. Okay, I think that's definitely a good one. Let's go. Look, we talk a lot about this guy, Derek Barnett.
Yep.
Showed you flashes in his younger years, his 2017, when he was a rookie, made some plays for sure. Certainly recovered that fumble which Brandon stripped of Tom Brady, perhaps the biggest play in Eagles history he was involved in. But beyond that, it's been mediocre play and injuries that have sort of dominated the theme for him the last few years. He's in the last year of his deal. They do need depth at that position. So I think he makes it, right? But is this a year that breaks him, do you think? Will he be an Eagle going forward after this year is my question.
His journey so far is so similar to what Brandon Graham has gone through. But I look at the 2 seasons he had back-to-back. In 2019, he had 6.5 sacks. 2020, he had 5.5 sacks. That's not bad for a DN, especially a young DN. And then, of course, he allowed the mental lapses to overcome his physical ability, to the point people talk more about his mental lapses than they do his physical potential. He lost all of last season because of that knee injury. He had to sit there and watch this team rack up all these sacks. Now look at his position. You got Josh Sweat out there. You got Brandon Graham out there. You got Hassan Reddick out there. There is a definite place in the rotation for Derek Barnett. And you couple in the fact that the money he will be making this year is cap friendly. So it's not like he's costing the Eagles a lot of money. This organization, I believe, has identified that Derek Barnett can help this team out. And that's a reason why he's still here today. Now, Derek Barnett has to show people that he has grown in terms of not making a mental mistake, staying healthy on the football field, and contributing to the success of this defense. And I believe, and I've said this several times all year long, I believe we'll see a different maturity in Barnett, especially from the mental aspects of the game. I think it was a great learning tool for him in 2022 to sit back and watch the team's success that they went through defensively. I think it makes them hungrier, more anxious to get back out there to prove that he can be an integral part of this defense. But I also will say, when you look at how this team has drafted over the last 3 years, speed has been a criteria. Drafting from that premier conference has been a criteria. If Derek Barnett doesn't pan out this year, I think his tenure with the Eagles will be over.
Yeah, I would agree with you. All right, let me hit you with some guys who maybe contributed a little bit, special teams, depth, whatever. Let's go Davion Taylor, who, he was an interesting case, Derek, because he didn't play a lot of football because of his religious beliefs in high school, but he got some opportunities at Colorado, and you thought this guy, when it comes NFL time, could really explode. There's a lot of raw ability there. It hasn't really worked out. He's, frankly, been kind of a bust. What was he, a third rounder?
He was Taylor was a third rounder. Yep.
Yeah. Where would you think he fits in this make it or break it this season for the Eagles?
Well, the good thing for him is he's a young player. He was drafted in 2020. So he's got 3 seasons under his belt. He's played the last 2 years in 21 games, and when he's played, he's more a special teamer than he is a viable defensive option. For every one play that you hear his name called that he makes, there's many series that go by when he's out. You don't hear anything from him. Mm-hmm. Or you look up and he's all of a sudden getting beat on a play. I think this is a pivotal year in his development. Now, you look at what's in front of him. Reed Blankenship stepped up in front of him. They went out and got CJ GJ for a year. Now you have Terrell Edmonds back there as well. So this is a proven year for him. And again, I can't emphasize enough. In years past, we've seen Howie Roseman and his organization give up on players after 3 seasons. And I think he's in that category also. That, again, look at what the Eagles drafted this year. look at what they've brought in.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the multitude of draft picks they have next year.
Yeah,
they could find another strong safety if they need be in the draft again next year.
mm-hmm.
Who knows? Strong safety, depending on the quality of safeties, could be a high priority next year for them.
Yeah.
So I think he's got to understand this could be his make it or break it year with the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, he's a young player who will find a home somewhere, but he's got to get this special team tag off of him if he wants to show people that he can be an every down player.
Okay. All right. Let me follow up with a guy who, similar draft status, similar age, et cetera. Kayvon Wallace, who actually has turned himself into a nice special teamer. So I'm not, that's real. And that's valued on the team for sure. But I thought coming out of college that he could potentially be a starter. Like the way people are talking about Sidney Brown is the way I thought Kayvon Wallace kind of influence that he would have, but it hasn't really worked out thus far. Make it or break it, Kayvon Wallace.
Well, he's drafted the same year as Davion Taylor.
Yep.
And I think Kayvon Wallace falls in that same category. It's a make it or break it season for him with the Philadelphia Eagles. You've had more than 2 seasons now to prove your worth, and they keep building around you. They keep bringing in pieces around you, which tells me that they're not certain if he's here for the long haul. They're not certain about his immediate future. He does have a place in the special teams unit. He's a really good special teams player. But no player wants to be just labeled as a special teams player. And with him now, that's what he is. He's had the capability. He's shown flashes. He just hasn't been consistent enough. And I don't think he's being looked at as in the mix to be a frontline player for this team this year. Mm-hmm. He's looked at being a backup if somebody gets hurt. Your value to this team is your special teams ability. But if he wants to find a long-term niche in the National Football League, he has got to find a way to improve in other aspects of his overall game. And so, yes, I put him also in that category of this being a make it or break it year with the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. Trey Sermon, is it fair to put him in this? I mean, came over, he was practice squad. I don't know that he quite fits the bill of some of these other guys. I mean, simply from a numbers thing, I think he might be in trouble, but that's tough because you got Swift, you got Penny, you got Gainwell, you got Scott.
Yeah.
I mean, it may just be a numbers thing for him. It may not reflect his ability.
No. I think he's a hard runner. He has a nice little burst, nice little second gear. He ripped off that 14-yard run in one game, but we hadn't heard from him since. And instead of looking at him as someone who would elevate on the depth chart, they go out and get 2 other backs, which pushes him further down the depth chart. There's no question he can play in the National Football League. He's a tough runner, tough to bring down. But I don't know if they look at him as a fit here. If they did, I don't think they go out and get Penny. I don't think they go out and get Swift. In that case, you get one or the other. You don't bring in both. So I think he gets lost in a numbers game because right now he's behind Boston Scott.
Mm-hmm.
100%
he is. Yeah.
How many teams are going to keep more than 4 running backs on a roster? Now, they could bury him again on the practice squad.
Yeah, but somebody could grab him, and that's the way it works. They could.
But that's a tough situation for him to be in. I'm sure he's frustrated. He's going to say all the right things, do all the right things. But a running back wants to run the ball, wants to be accounted on. Mm-hmm. And you look at the depth chart now, he doesn't figure into their immediate future in 2023.
Yeah. And anybody else you'd put in the make it or break it category?
I would have to say, Greg Ward.
Okay.
Here's a guy who we know is tough. One season they called him First Down Greg because every time he caught a pass, it was for a first down.
Mm-hmm.
He's sure-handed. He's reliable. He can block. He can catch. Yeah,
he can return a punt. He's not going to give you much, but he'll secure it at least. Yeah.
But yet he didn't play in any games last year.
Right.
Nothing. They kept him on the practice squad.
Yeah.
And as of right now, he's still on the roster. But what more can he do to show that he can help this team? Now, granted, it's a new coach, a new mindset, a new coaching staff. They have their own visions and their own versions of what they want a pass catcher to be in terms of height, weight, ability, route running. He doesn't have the height, but he has the ability, the route running. He's tough. He's not afraid to go over the middle, not afraid to take the big shot. But look at where he is on this depth chart.
Yeah, I think this is – I like him a lot. I don't think he's a part of the squad this year. I don't.
Would they put him on the practice squad again as an insurance?
Yes, I think they do that. I think they probably do that. But unless there's serious injuries, I don't think he has much hope of getting time. I don't.
But if I was him in his representation, I would go to the Eagles and say, hey, can you just let him go? Let him try to find somewhere else to play. There are teams out there like Indianapolis, Arizona, Houston that could use his abilities.
Yeah.
Just let me go. Let me move on. Don't bury me on the practice squad. Let me move on, please.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at the depth chart. I'm just trying to see if there's anybody else. Like, they're really, I mean, in terms of the offensive line, I don't know. I mean, I guess in terms of maybe like a punt returner, Devin Allen, Britton Covey. Is Devin Allen a gunner this year? Not much else. Maybe Zach McPherson could fit into a make or break.
No, I think he has a good role here. They like him. They like the way he plays. They like his speed. He's a good tackler. He's not going to be viewed as a frontline player, but he's a good insurance policy in case somebody went down. Mm-hmm. I don't think he is in much trouble or potential trouble as some of the other guys that we've talked about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, let's come back. Let's talk some Phils, Derek. Huge series tonight, beginning tonight against the Braves. We'll get into the Phillies. What's gotten them, turned around here? Atlanta equally hot. The Marlins are equally hot. We'll talk a lot of baseball in the NFL segment. One of the things we're going to do over the course of the next a few weeks, when we have, until training camp begins, we're going to look at individual teams and run through their greatest players ever. And today we're doing the Steelers. We're doing the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we're going to do them coming up at 2:00. So we'll do that. We'll do some Phillies when we get back. You don't want to go anywhere. He's Derrick Gunn. I am Rob Ellis. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Time to tell you about Pro Action Restoration. Yeah, Pro Action Restoration. You might have a home. You might have a business. You might have a property that you own. And unfortunately, you don't like it, but it's the reality. You go through the inconvenience of water, fire, smoke, mold damage. And you're not really sure who to turn to. Well, Pro Action Restoration is on call 24 hours, 7 days a week to assist. So you got an issue on a Saturday night. You got an issue on Memorial Day, Labor Day, whatever, 4th of July. They are available. They're on call 24 hours, 7 days a week, as I said. And look, I went through it on a Saturday. They got right out to my parents' house and they cleaned it up. And it was a great experience. It really was. They are licensed, bonded, and fully insured, and they've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action Restoration will work in conjunction with your insurance company. So again, water, fire, smoke, mold damage, any of those that apply to you and then some, they can handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.
Do you